All right, Sarah, you brought me some ads.
I did.
I'm ready for it. We got,
okay.
You can start. You can start whatever one you want to start with first.
Okay.
You can share your screen and we can do it.
Share my screen. I have all three of them up for you. I had like 2 seconds to pull all these. Okay, so we'll start with this first one. And if you can't see this is like one of my favorite ads that I've ever designed. This was way back in the day. So imagine this was probably 2021. This was the first time that I started doing any sort of emotional analysis for brands. And this one in particular was so simple. And like, I feel kind of bad because the brand came to me and they were like, we really need help. Nothing's working in the ad account. We're trying to figure out like what people need to hear to be able to convert. So I went through and did an analysis. And the analysis that I did, I didn't know that I was doing this at the time, but I was doing NLP analysis by hand. So I pulled down a bunch of reviews off of their website. And then I was reading each review one by one and then assigning them a number based upon which emotions I thought were in the reviews. Because I'm weird. Sarah's just weird like that. So
I love this.
I was pulling out all of these really interesting things, and I put like an actual formula in an Excel spreadsheet so I could figure out which one was coming up most frequently. And the one that came out most frequently was belonging, which I thought was interesting. So for this particular brand, obviously you can't see it if you're listening to the podcast. But this brand is a brand that makes hoppy tea. So it's non-alcoholic tea that they basically just like put hops into. So they would take like jasmine tea or they take chamomile tea or like all kinds of different teas. And they just put hops into it. It is delicious. They sent me a pack. It was like the best thing I've ever tasted. Their problem was they kept trying to run this message towards, sort of an angle of like you can have a non-alcoholic beverage and you don't have to be a part of the alcoholic crowd. So they were basically doing a separation message of like, don't be a part of the crowd, just drink hoppy tea instead of drinking like beer. Right now, when I was there and did the analysis, all of the reviews that were coming up said the same thing over and over, which is I used to love hoppy beer. It was like a huge part of who I was. I used to drink a ton with my friends. And then either for health reasons or for just moral reasons, I just decided I didn't want to drink anymore. But I miss it was the message. So I pulled that out as like, okay, this sounds like they really want to belong to the crowd still. So then I ran this ad. So the ad headline says Hopheads Unite. And then it has just a bullet list, alcohol-free, worry-free, calorie-free, like alcohol-free, calorie-free. Worry-free is the arrangement.
Yeah.
And then it just says shop flavors on here. Easiest, super simple thing, right? I was just like, we'll see if belonging works for these people. This one ad dropped their customer acquisition cost by 30% in 4 days.
I'm gonna pop the Unite. It's like the crazy thing is when we think about headlines, usually we're trying to get this like crazy headline, a problem solution. But this is not like your like problem solution necessarily. It's a little sneaky, but I think that there's nuance to this. And actually, as you're telling me this story, I'm like, it resonates deeper now. But Hopheads Unite is like, I mean, this is chef's kiss. I mean, we're starting this show off with a bang. Wait, so tell me this.
Yes.
Okay, so you've identified we need to belong. How did you get Hopheads Unite? Like, tell me, like, what was your process? Were you writing like 10 headlines and this was the one that picked? How did you get to this? Because three words is hard. Yeah. Like actually more so words hard. Is easier. Yeah. Fewer words to send a message is very hard. So how did you get that, like the 3 words? How did you come up with that?
Well, and this was tough because this was before ChatGPT. So I was like, how am I going to do this? I would consider myself a pretty good communicator, both like verbally and written. But so, I mean, writing headlines usually came pretty easy for me. The toughest part was when I was writing the belonging headlines is I kept coming up with the same message, right? Which is like, have your cake and eat it too kind of message. So I would say things like, you don't have to have the alcohol in it. But you can still be a part of the crowd, right? So I kept drawing out these really, really long headlines. So the problem that I was having is I was like, I can't get this down to a very succinct message. Like it needs to be smaller because I keep writing these really long things and they're good. But I know ads and I know ads really, really well. And I know that people scroll so fast, they're not going to be able to read this. Nobody's going to resonate. So I went back to the research and I asked, I put in a formula into the Excel spreadsheet that pulled out the top keywords and phrases that kept coming up. And hophead rose straight to the top. I'm a hophead. I used to be a hophead. I'm a part of the hophead community. Apparently, this is something people call themselves. I was like, what is a hophead? I don't drink beer. So I was like, what's a hophead? Right now, this happens in every industry, for every market, for every product on the planet. There are community-focused, what I call self-adopted terms. And you have it for everything, right? I'm a crunchy mom. I'm a helicopter mom. I'm a tiger mom. There's words that people use to describe themselves in a particular context. If you drink beer, a hophead is somebody who loves hoppy beer. Yes. So I just went back and I was like, ooh, I can probably use this self-adopted term and just like make it shorter, right? Compact it. So I wrote Hopheads Unite, and then I put the benefits of what the actual product was, not necessarily the features of it, right? It's alcohol-free, it's calorie-free. Worry-free in particular is the one that I think hit people the hardest, because it's not necessarily worrying about the alcohol content. It's worrying, will I be accepted? That was the core piece of the belonging that they wanted solved. And this particular ad, Hopheads Unite, with that worry-free on it, just crushed.
So it's interesting because, you know, our brains, the reason why they're stereotypes is because our brains need shortcuts. They need shortcuts to identify and like be able to prejudge people. Like it's like a innate thing that we have. Obviously, like as society has, you know, grown, maybe that's not as great, but it's just how we work.
Yes.
So, but like, if you think about it from an ads perspective, innately people have stereotypes, but they have self-identifiers or ways in which to quickly identify themselves in an ad, and Hopheads is that. And what's even better is that I didn't know that. And that means that maybe I wasn't like the hophead. I might drink it. Like the other thing is like the caveat is like maybe as this brand matures and grows, they will need to find people beyond the hopheads. But if they are kind of where, like, depending on where their size is, they actually need to go deep in this one group of people. Hopheads allows them to really go and get those, you know, first users, the people that it's like should be their like hardcore users, 100%. Not the casual drinkers, because that's how you can build a sustainable brand, is when people are coming back and buying this, especially in CPG. So the fact that you were able to get that self-identifier is like, I mean, that's chef's kiss right there.
Self-adopted terms, man. Go figure out what your people call themselves and then call them that. I didn't know. I don't drink beer. And that's the toughest part about being a marketer. I can't have deep knowledge on every single industry on the planet. There's no way. Like, I can't keep that amount of information in my head or even on a sheet of paper. But I can very easily go to chat nowadays, which is how I do it now, and just say, chat, give me the self-adopted terms that are coming out of this particular customer base. And it just like, boop, 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 boop. And the nice part is now I don't have to figure out what to say. I know what to say.
So tell me that. So you basically are going to like ChatGPT and basically are saying, you know, I'm reaching this audience for this product. Like, I'm reaching people who are drinking non-alcoholic beer or whatever, tea beer. You know, what do people in this space call themselves? Is that like what you're asking it? Okay.
Yeah. So the prompt is usually, I have to give it an example, right? So we're going after parents in this particular industry. I need to know what type of identities exist in this audience. So find me things similar to crunchy mom, because I already know that that's one term that exists. So I'll give it an example. And that way it'll come out and say, oh, you have helicopter moms here, you have tiger moms in here, you have all these different moms, right? Any industry, as long as you know at least one of the terms, you can easily have chat go find you more. If you don't know any of the terms, you'll have to do what I did and just give it a bunch of reviews and say, are there any self-adopted terms that you see in here?
Okay,
and
so
usually it does
you did it the old-fashioned way, which is hilarious because it's like 2 years ago, the old-fashioned way.
I know, old-fashioned was 2 years ago.
Which is printing out reviews and putting in an Excel sheet. So tell me this: how are you doing this now? Like, if you were to do something like this today,
Yes.
Are you
Yeah.
pulling a CSV file of reviews? What kind of
Mm.
questions are you trying to kind of find out? Like, what are you doing with that stuff?
Oh, now I have a robust process because Sarah gets weird and scientific with all of this. So I used to do it in Excel. Then I marched over and started to do this with chat, where it was like, pull out what you can. But the problem with doing it that way is chat is limited, right? In its knowledge about like what this particular industry houses, especially if it's new. So if there's a new industry, chat doesn't have a whole lot of history on it because it's only been around since 2021. And it's combed a lot of the internet, but not all of it. So nowadays, I actually run picture-based surveys. This sounds weird, like pictorial surveys, so that I can identify all of the identities that exist within a TAM from a subconscious level. So I'm using picture-based surveys on purpose, mostly so that I can pull out subconscious motivators from people. Text-based surveys are great-ish. The problem is, depending on how you ask the question, you'll get back a very different answer. So if people are reading a multiple choice question, what type of mom are you? And you only give them 4 different types of moms, they'll just bucket themselves into one that kind of fits, but probably isn't accurate. So I use picture-based surveys so that they can choose a picture of what type of mom they are. And then we'll ask a context follow-up question that's just, why did you choose that image? So that I can double check to see if her logic and the emotions are matching up.
Okay, and I'm gonna add some context. Why images is helpful is because our subconscious does not think in language; it thinks in emotions and in images. So that is why, like, that's a better way of actually understanding them. And it goes back to the stereotypes and the self-identifiers. It's like we quickly go through those things. So if we have 4 options, we just kind of put ourselves in a bucket. But we're nuanced. We're unique people. We've got other things and feelings and experiences. So the images is really great. Before we get to the next ad, tell me this. How are you doing those surveys? Are you like you mentioned, okay, I've got a survey of, whatever picture follow-up question. How are you procuring that?
Yeah. So this is a shameless plug for my business, Tether Insights.
Why not? Why not? Let's do it. Plug it away. Plug away, baby. Yeah.
If you want to run pictorial surveys to figure out who exists inside your TAM, identity-wise, and what they want most out of life and out of your products, we run these surveys to 2 audiences. So cold audience through basically the brand's ad account, because it's most trained to find people inside that particular customer group. And then warm audience, which is usually to like an email list. Now I run it to 2 audiences on purpose because I noticed that people are running surveys as a study. They're running self-studies in a survey, usually a post-purchase, but they don't have a control. So how do we know that data is even accurate? So I run it to cold audience and a warm audience so I can get a control. I can compare the 2 data sets and say, oh, warm audience responds really well to this message, but cold audiences respond really well to this one. So now I can tell, oh, well, retention, we need to talk like this. And for acquisition, we should talk like this. It's pretty easy to figure out who exists inside the TAM. Now, I've seen some brands come back and there's 6 avatars, 3 for the cold, 3 for the warm. Some brands come back and there's 27 avatars. Some brands come back and there's 2. It just depends on the brand and the industry that they're in. It is fascinating stuff. Just depends on the brand. But a lot of the stuff that we called out in this ad, self-identified terms, understanding what they want emotionally on a deep level and how we need to say it, all comes out from that research.
I love it. All right. Yeah. So I've also have not seen any of these ads, so I don't really know what's next, but maybe you want to, let's do something different here.
Okay. So the next one we have, this is one that I actually ran this year. And it was a very interesting ad because, again, I do my normal level of NLP-based research and survey research. And this one in particular was built off of just an NLP. So we were just identifying the emotions. The picture-based panel that I run is called the CIM, a core identity map. The CIM is specifically to pull out identification, right? Identifiers for people, avatars. So this one was run off an NLP, which is built to just identify the emotional needs of people. And one of the things that came out of this one was fascinating. This particular customer type really felt like they were unseen a little bit. There was an esteem need, right? But it was a really specific level of esteem. Now, I tell people this all the time. You can identify emotions from an NLP that comes out of chat. It's very, very easy. The problem with it is chat will give you a generalized emotion. It will usually say your customer wants to look good in a shirt. Now, why they want to look good in a shirt is most important, right? Because it depends on context. Sometimes I want to look good in a shirt because I'm on a date with my husband and I just want to look nice for him. Sometimes I want to look good in a shirt because I'm about to go on stage and I need people to like view me as a person of authority. Sometimes I want to look good in a shirt just because I'm out with the kids and I just want to be comfortable. Depends on where I'm at. So for this particular customer type, this it has very, very distinct, like beautiful redhead model. She's gorgeous. I love her. Really nice, like white shirt, jeans on like this background of what looks like kind of a gray
curtain,
like sheet curtain.
Yeah.
This fit like it was made for you, though. Did extremely well for them. Obviously, I still have some call outs in this ad. We still want to use good D2C practices. So I have a couple different call outs for the casual fit. It goes with everything. It's a perfect length. Again, all call outs that are benefit focused, not necessarily feature focused. And then just a headline on the top, fit like it was made for you. This particular ad, one ad, took basically, we ran it for 2 weeks, increased their return on investment by 4x.
So
they like jumped. They were a little bit below, like I think it was like a 1 or like a 0.2 was their ROAS, and this one came back with 4 ROAS, 4.1 I think it was.
So okay, one thing. Tell me this. So like headline is everything, but one thing that I notice is like the shirt itself, it lays perfectly on the model.
Yes.
How do you feel like the image to what it's saying relates to it? And did you try any images different than this image? I'm curious.
Yes. So we tried a bunch of, usually when I go through and I create ads, I create a pack of 9, and that's it. That's on purpose. So the NLP will usually pull up about 3 emotional motivators that rise to the top based upon the review analysis that we're doing. Sometimes 4, but usually about 3. So I'll build 3 ads per emotion. And that's on purpose. I'm trying to see how I should speak to that emotion, right? So I'll have 3 different ads that all speak to this idea of esteem, or in this particular case, appeal. It's like a subgroup of esteem, appeal. I will do 3 ads that speak directly to appeal in different ways. Because I need to know, is it sexual appeal? Like she's trying to go after a significant other or a partner? Is it internal self-love appeal? Or is it maybe external, like self-validation appeal? What type of appeal is it? I don't know. Sarah could guess, but that would be my marketer bias coming into play, and I hate marketer bias, and I'm trying actively to destroy it. Destroy your own marketer bias. You don't know. You don't know why people want what they want. The quickest way to find out is to nuance your way into it. So for this one, we figured out pretty quickly that it was kind of this like self-love appeal, not self-validation or like just straight up relationship appeal. Fit like it was made for me. Effortlessness which is what she desired. Now, to your point, coming back around to the image usually gets processed 60,000 times faster than the text. It's the very first thing people see. The brain will process what's in the image, and then it will go to read the text, unless it's just a strictly text-based image. If there's no picture on it, then obviously it's going to read the text. In this particular instance, though, it's not the shirt that's getting people to stop. It's her facial expression.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay, tell me more about that. That's interesting.
This particular model, because she's a redhead, obviously, she stands out a little bit more starkly against all this white that she's surrounded by. But the concept that I'm trying to convey is effortlessness, fit like it was made for you, right? Just breezy. Her face says effortless, like this is the easiest day I've ever had. She's kind of got her chin tilted up. She's got this really soft gaze. Her lips are kind of slightly parted. Her facial expression is conveying more than the headline did.
Well, her arm too, like the ways, like
just kind of
like draped. Should I be a model? Yeah. Should I be a model?
100%. You should. Model for Perfect YT. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. And a good model, somebody who knows how to convey emotion with their body and their face, can get you these kind of results. She conveys effortless.
So one thing that's interesting is, there's always like a debate about like, should you like how to create the content? Like, so like,
yes,
let's take away words and stuff aside.
Yeah.
But let's say, if your production doesn't understand the strategy. So if this is again, a really good, example of how photo video actually can create revenue, and how those two things are like actually together, and how if the creator of the content itself understood these things, they would then direct the model better to do this. Now, what's interesting is for Perfect White Tea now, moving forward, that can be, they have a better directive. So more of their photos that they do on average will probably do better because they know how to direct the model. Does that make sense? To 100%. Create that emotional connection, which people don't talk about. But I think that's what's really interesting here.
Yes. Oh, 100%. And I've run a CIM, that core identity map where we ask the pictorial surveys, the questions in a picture base, for a brand that really wanted to know what facial expressions are going to resonate best with our audience. What body language should we use? What background should we put this on? What settings should we have them in, right? So we went through and we did the research and just asked their customer base, which one of these feels most like you? Because I wanted to, mirror, man, all the brands should be doing nowadays is mirroring what their customers do. So I needed to know before they spend thousands of dollars on a new photo shoot, getting new models in, understanding where they should sit, like putting them in places that the marketer thinks would be best. We might as well just ask people, which of these feels like you? So that the results from that CIM was fascinating because we thought for sure all of their guys were going to want to, because it was a I don't know what you call it, like fitted shirts, fitted pants.
Yeah.
But that for sure they'd want this dominant, real like, beefy kind of structure where it was like very confident. Every single one of them, hands down, on warm and cold traffic, said that they wanted a happy looking guy who had like this kind of laid back, just whatever posture. It was fascinating. I was like, what? I did not predict that. That is insane. So then the whole brand switched over to this and now they're scaling like crazy because they don't have to guess.
That's crazy. Okay, I love it. All right, let's go to the next one. One. We've got two more, right? So we've got
one more.
One more. Okay, this is the.
Did you want more? I can go find more. But
No. I didn't know how many we had left. This is the longest one, right?
3. Yes.
Yeah, we said 3.
Yeah.
We said 3.
So this next one is the longest running ad that I've ever had ever, and it's been running almost 4 years. This will be the 4th year that it runs. So.
Ooh. Let's see what it is.
You're probably gonna know this one as soon as we see it. This ad.
Ooh.
I'm surprised you don't know this one. This is probably.
Has it been turned off? Or runs?
So this one runs in perpetuity in different ads. So the one message that we created for this gets duplicated to more and more and more ads, depending on the time of year that they want it to run. But this specific phrase has been running for 4 years. So, and the interesting part is you can't see it. You can't even see the phrase that I came up with on this ad. But it freaking crushes. So this is for a brand called Original Grain. They make these very interesting watches that are made out of like wood and other reclaimed materials, specifically whiskey barrels, but they've used all kinds of things like firewood and all kinds of interesting stuff. This particular ad, obviously the guy that does all of the marketing for them, Nate Lagos, shout out to him, fantastic marketer, really, really good at what he does. He ran 2 separate ads the first year that we ran this message. One with this just Father's Day sale, save up to $100, our best-selling timepiece, yada, yada, with a picture of this really nice watch in front of some fire. He ran 2 different ads. First one was just this without this teeny tiny subhead. Second one was all of it with this teeny tiny subhead. The subhead that he ran, Show Daddy's Worth Every Second, that was written by me based upon all of my NLP research. They had basically an A/B test, and the subhead just crushed, even with this size where it's like itty bitty in the middle. This particular ad increased their revenue by 30% in 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
On one ad, 30% increase in revenue. Also had, I think we did a 30% increase in AOV and LTV over the course of this time period.
So you have now for like 4 years, you've been using this tagline.
Yeah, he just keeps running this tagline for every holiday that comes up, any sale that he does, any email that he runs, and every single time, just crush. Which I find hilarious because you can't even see it. I was like, you should have made it bigger, Nate. Jeez.
So what about when he does this for other like holidays or whatever, different images? Like basically just take this one line and just everywhere, but like different images, maybe different others, everything else is different all the time.
Yeah. So they'll continuously update their like branded images. So their team is still taking all kinds of different images, one specifically for Father's Day or Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. It's tailored to the actual holiday that they're selling in. but the message never changes. So it'll be either show dad he's worth every second, show your man he's worth every second, show him he's worth every second. The only thing that'll change is basically the modifier of the relationship, but the message has stayed the same for years and years, and it continues to run because it's so emotionally focused to the person that they're trying to bring in, which is a female who's currently in a relationship with somebody she cares about. Right? And she wants to show that appreciation.
Yeah. So tell me this, right? The end user of the product is maybe most likely not the buyer of the product.
Yes.
So
100%.
How did you think about how do we make this attractive for the end user, but also speak to the buyer? Because those are two different people, two different genders, maybe. Like, 100%. How does that work?
Yeah. So as we talked about before, the image is going to stop people first and get processed through the brain first. So this image of this like very masculine looking kind of chunky watch in front of kind of a bonfire looking thing is going to directly speak to who he is, who the actual user is, which is some sort of husband, boyfriend, significant other who would be interested in this type of watch. The actual messaging, though, is directed towards the buyer, not the consumer, the buyer, which is his wife, girlfriend, partner, whoever she is, right? Show him he's worth every second. It's a Father's Day sale, obviously. So they have other benefits in here that are doing a lot for the message. But it's that image. If she sees this scroll across her feed, she's going to stop because it looks and feels like him, specifically because it feels like him. And then she's going to read the message and understand, oh, this is for me. The two coupled together, her relationship with her significant other and her desire to be seen as somebody who gives good gifts is doing most of the heavy lifting in this ad. And that's why it worked so incredibly well. Yeah.
And most likely she's searching for these gifts. Like she's searching for something to give to this person. Yeah. So like quickly the image identifies this is obviously not something she would buy for herself, but okay, I'm seeking, she's open to the world of buying something for their significant other.
Yes.
Sees it, is like, okay, stops because of that, gets a really great deal. Okay, save 100%, like, or $100, whatever, all this stuff. But then that line is the thing that like is like emotionally just triggers and hits. Okay, let me go click 100%. Through.
Yep. And you find this every day, everywhere you go. The people you spend the most time with and the people that you actually cultivate deep relationships with, you see them in everything. Like I'll go to some random store, Target or whatever, and I will see Swedish Fish or I'll see like Sour Patch Kids, and it will instantly remind me of my husband because he likes those type of candies. It doesn't matter if I was thinking of him or shopping for him, or it doesn't matter if I talked to him earlier that day. I could be thinking about something completely different. But those like associations will elicit a response immediately from the subconscious. This feels like him. That's why she stopped, right? So when we're creating ads, when you're doing any sort of paid advertising, especially in the creator space, if you're doing UGC or creative agency, whatever you have, the best thing you can do is find out what feels like the consumer and then market towards the buyer. Take that feeling of whoever that person is on the consumer side and drop that into an ad and then speak to the buyer about what she wants most.
I like it. I've got one last question for you, which is if somebody were to start today and, we want to get some of these things going, how would you suggest a brand to maybe like, what are some like very simple steps that they could take to kind of jump in to this world of yours that you're kind of talking about? What should they kind of do to start?
I mean, I am a huge fan of AI. I think if you're not using AI, you're going to be behind in like a month because that's how fast it's moving. So the best thing you can do, take your reviews. If you haven't used your reviews already, I'm like, oh, what are you doing? You have so much data in those reviews that talk to things like this. You can pull out different relationships that exist within your TAM, relationships that they have with influencers in their life who are currently affecting whether your brand gets chosen or another brand does. So take your reviews, go and ask it to analyze for things just like that. Self-adopted terms, which we talked about before, deepest emotions, what these people want to feel, and get nuanced with it. Don't just stop at esteem. Go down deeper into the emotions that are actually coming out. And then things like this. Tell me who's involved in that purchasing process, chat. Who's involved? Who's the buyer? Who's the consumer? What are their names? What titles do they give themselves? How do they feel about each other? And then what imagery could we possibly use to elicit an emotional response? That's how you get close to this style. Or you come hire Sarah. And I'll tell you how to do it. But in general, there's a lot of information in your reviews. You don't have to look far.
And then the key thing off of that is like, that only gets you like, that's like a starting point, right? You still got to be able to write copy and do all of those things, but it allows you to have a better foundation that you feel like, or like a compass, if you will. And I think that's the strongest thing.
Oh no, it's frozen. We froze.
We're good. I just basically said that it gives you
like
it gives you a compass. Like it gives you a compass to at least directionally go somewhere. You still got to figure out like the right words. You know, it might take. It might not. You're not going to just one hit wonder. You know, like off the first headline, but you're going in a direction that's closer than I could say anything. And I think that's where the real value comes.
Yep. This all comes down to what you say, how you say it, right? What you say is important. How you say it is critical to your growth. And again, not everything that you're saying is coming out in text. A lot of it is being conveyed in the image. So got to think about all this. Like, I feel bad, marketers, that you have to do this now, but you kind of have to do this now. We didn't used to have to compete like this. Back in brand era in the 1950s, all the way up to kind of 1980s, all we had to do was run enough ads, right? So this, what do they call that? Like signaling, where we used to signal how healthy a brand was just by how much ads were out there, how much advertising we actually produced. It used to be enough to grow a brand. If you saw a brand on a billboard and a bus stop and in the newspapers and on the radio and TV, you assumed that this is probably where I should spend my money. Nowadays, because everybody has access to all kinds of different social media, we are privy to all kinds of social, interesting, like secretive things that we probably shouldn't know about. Because we have access to so much information and there's thousands of brands we're competing with, you can no longer afford to just throw up an ad and say it will work. You'll have to figure out, that emotional depth is critical.
All right, Sarah, where can people find you? Plug it away. Where's the plug? Where's the plug?
You can find me at Sarah Levinger, basically everywhere you consume content. And then head over to tetherinsights.io. We are doing market research for D2C brands. So if you want to understand who your avatars are, how many exist within your TAM, and then emotionally what they need to hear to be able to buy, Tether Insights is your place.
Love it. Thanks, Sarah. First
You're
guest.
welcome. This was so fun. I loved it.
I love it.